So welcome everybody, whether you're new or the usual suspects. Welcome to another Cute for Teams Champions Using Teams Effectively. You are the champion. I am Ricardo. That is Stacy. And we are here to geek out with you on Teams and collaboration and Microsoft 365 in general. This is your first time. Consider this office hours. Consider it Ask Me Anything. Come here with questions, and we try our best to answer. But we also just talk collectively about this. So as you can see, you can come off mute to ask questions, although we have disabled your cameras. So at any point, feel free to use the chat or come off mute to ask a question, and we'll do our best to help out with that. And speaking of chat, let me make sure I can see it. All right. Awesome. So glad to see everybody jumping in here. Has anybody come with a burning question they've been holding for the last 14 days? I do see a hand up. Go for it.
Good morning. I'm so happy that we are back in these sessions.
Yeah.
So thank you. So I don't know if everybody's getting it yet, but the new experience in scheduling webinar is not good. I hadn't even looked at it really until one of our users reached out to me and said, how do I do this? And so I sent them back to using the schedule a meeting. And from there, you can go back to a previous experience with scheduling a webinar. So, and I'll tell you why. Because when you set up in this experience that you're using right now, my best practice recommendation to our users is to set your scheduler about 10 to 15 minutes prior to what you're advertising your registrants to register for. So if we start at 10:30, I tell them set it at 10:15, 10:20, something like that. So your panel, your board, whoever can come in, get organized before your participants expect you to start your event. With this experience, you can't do that. So it sets it for 11:30. It sends it to your presenters, your co-organizers for 11:30. And I know they could easily put it on their calendar, but then that's just a mess. And so when you previous to this, you set up your scheduler that went out to your presenters, your co-organizers, whatever, and then you set up your registration form. And you had the opportunity to set 2 different times. You don't have that anymore here. So if you go back and you schedule, if you X out of here and instead you choose to schedule a meeting.
Just a standard schedule meeting.
Now, when you change require registration to an option other than none, so if you say people in your organization, it will then take you back to the previous experience. So the scheduler that you're looking at now, you can adjust the time for people that you send it to, your presenters and co-organizers, panel, whoever, to come in at 10:20. And then if you click on view registration form, then that gives you an opportunity to set it for the actual event time. That's what the webinar button used to do. It was very confusing. Being a government entity at the county, we have a lot of public noticed board meetings. And so we wouldn't want the public to come in while our board is still trying to get organized and thinking that the meeting should have already opened.
Right. Have you by chance submitted this already anywhere?
No, I'm telling you.
Oh, okay.
Stacy.
Yeah, because it is.
That is. I'm typing this out as I'm hearing it, because I've certainly had, and I think Melody, you've probably heard me say that adjusting that start time I always saw that as a best practice and something that would really give the presenters a chance to get in and get organized, as in your words. So yeah, I think this is valuable feedback, and I'm happy to relay it.
Yeah. I liked it
Thank
too.
you. I appreciate it. Yeah, trust me, one of my users, she was so frazzled. She's like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" So I was worried, but luckily we talked through it and checked, because I know at one point our webinar button was missing, but then we could revert back to this meeting and making it into a webinar registration experience while the webinar button was gone. And so I was hoping that this still was there. So it's good that that's still there.
Right.
Yeah, and it's also, given the whole green room functionality, you would think we want to support, those 2 times and not have to make you manually create a new time for the presenters and all that. So yeah, I like that feedback.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question about this. Suzanne, I actually use webinars to schedule our training classes. And by using a lobby and having that in place, it blocks early entrance by attendees. However, anyone I've listed in the room as a co-organizer can enter in advance. So the room is blocked for all attendees. However, my co-organizer can enter 15, 30 minutes in advance. They can enter when they want to.
Is that via the
Right.
green room feature?
The green room feature is not something I've taken advantage of yet.
Okay.
So maybe I would actually love to learn about that. I don't have any co-organizers for my webinars. I actually am leading them myself, but I do block attendees in a lobby. So by using that lobby feature and turning that on, I have found that really helpful. And we get started at the top of the hour, and I open up to everyone.
We do that too, but a lot of our high-profile users, it would just be confusing to them. We would have to actually probably send them a second scheduler to remind them to come in, because their calendars are so busy. It would actually have to be a block on their calendar a little bit earlier. So yes, and I will say I do like the option now to allow everyone I invite to bypass the lobby. So it's not just me and my co-organizer, it's everyone I invite. So my presenters and my co-organizers can bypass the lobby. So certainly it's great to have pointed that out, yes, because we do use it. So that's one of the best practice settings that they do for these webinars, is they lock that lobby down, and then at the top of the hour, then they open it. But for the convenience of the presenters, they get the scheduler to let them know and provide them the link to come in 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is they want early.
Got it.
And I wonder, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ricardo.
I just want to tell a quick story about letting people into your meetings. And so you might want to call this a best practice, because you certainly have what we call people in your org, and you have setting on your meeting about whether, usually it's anybody in my org can come right in. It's typical meeting. And then there's or typical setting. There's also a setting in my org and guest. And I believe that's guest with a capital G. And by that, I mean that's someone that has a guest profile in your tenant, not just someone that's not in your org that you've invited, right? If your default is org plus those guests, then someone like me, if you're my customer and I'm Microsoft, I might be a guest, capital G, in your tenant. And I had a cool story where the customer actually they were having a meeting with us, Microsoft. They wanted a quick couple minutes to confer with themselves before Microsoft joined. However, they forgot that Ricardo was a guest in the tenant, and I jumped right in the middle of their conversation. and so I jumped out once I realized what was happening. But that's a nice little reminder to just say, if you do want that, just be conscious of what your settings are for invites, and recognize that some of your partners like Microsoft and others might have a little elevated privileging your tenant, and just be aware of that, because that was a very funny and fun experience for me. I did have to go back and remind them that, hey, I didn't get in because Microsoft Teams isn't secure. You literally, chose the setting that allowed me to come in. So it was a good learning moment too. But for all of you out there, from a best practice perspective, just be aware of your settings there. But go ahead, Stacy. I think you're saying something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's probably a product of feedback that they changed that webinar form time not being identical to the invite time, because I have had end users report to me errors in making an assumption that that time was going to be identical, instead of them taking advantage of it like Melody's agency was doing. They were just unaware. And so they were actually setting different start times for things that they didn't intend to, because they had a assumption that it was just going to be the same time as that invite. So I think it's probably born of that feedback that we've gone this direction with the webinar creation. That said, we definitely need to examine both sides of the coin, Melody. I think you're right in that there was an excellent use case for having that meeting start internally, at least a few minutes early, and govern calendars that way. So I'm happy to roll up and take that feedback, of course. But I was thinking as you were talking that I really did hear some of the negative side of having that start time be different out of the box. And so I may get pushback on the feedback because of that. They got there first with their feedback, I guess. And I'll certainly share it though, because I think it's valuable, and that was a good way to use the time. And I love your reminder about the power of the lobby, but I definitely see what Melody's saying about the beauty of having one internal invite that starts a few minutes before the audience is even expected to show up.
Absolutely. Valerie, I see your hands up.
So two things, our organization uses both Teams and Zoom. One of I think I'm a little more comfortable and more familiar with the interface in Zoom. So one of the things I was wondering was, is there a way to test settings without being in an actual meeting? And I think I tried this little test thing, and it did like a test call to like kind of a fake account or something, but it only lasted for like a couple of seconds, so I couldn't adjust my settings before it closed out. Is there some kind of feature for that? I know in Zoom, like you can go into the little cog and do it offline, or not be in a meeting to do it.
So are you talking about the settings specific to an upcoming meeting, or just settings in general?
Either. So again, like
Okay.
I'm used to Zoom, where you can just go into your settings and
Yeah.
check your audio and your video and stuff without
Right.
having to actively be in a meeting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in team, if we're looking, I'm not sharing here. Hold on one sec.
And I
If
do
we-
also have a second question too, but
Okay. But yeah, if we're looking at Teams here, yes, the three dots and the settings and things like devices are here. If you wanted to make adjustments to, your in this environment, I
cool.
don't have
And then
one,
are
but
you on the O365 view or desktop application?
this is the desktop.
Okay.
You would have a similar view in the browser as well.
Okay.
But yeah, lots of settings here, devices, including your mic and camera,
Okay.
any general settings, all of that are here. The other thing I was going to mention too was on any particular meeting, there's also meeting related settings, and those are found. You can see here the meeting options link there, which you can go to ahead of time and set things specific to the meeting, like whether or not people can turn on their cameras. I think this is an old meeting or something went wrong there, but whether or not people can turn on their cameras, all that good stuff. So, and then the last thing I would say is you can certainly have a meeting with yourself. I usually just go to
Okay.
calendar, meet now, and just
Okay.
meet with myself and try things out there too.
Okay, so it's like a test view. And then the other thing it's a struggle also with Zoom. When meeting with my supervisor or whoever, I'm a person who has a lot of windows open and I want to show, okay, here's a spreadsheet, and then I want to show this. So our feeling is that the share window does not track. So the only way I figured out how to do it is to unshare and then reshare and then choose among my 12 open windows or whatever to find the correct one. Is that just how it has to
Yes.
be, or?
So a couple things I would say to that. One, I would suggest if you're ever you're having a meeting where you're sharing lots of different things, then maybe sharing your your screen here might be best. Now, certainly the person can see everything going on in your screen, but then that means as you're switching between windows, you don't have to do other shares. It's going to just show whatever you're seeing. So screen versus window, this would be the most flexible, even though it's a little more, it's showing maybe more than you want. On the window side, I would say usually you're right. It's about picking a window, then stopping sharing and picking another one. Now, I will say on Windows 11 now, we do have this option here of share this window on down in your taskbar.
Okay.
By doing that, so if I share this one and then I'm ready to share another one, it's just it's just a half-second switch or blank on the meeting between sharing. So a lot easier to me, I think, than going back up into the three dots and doing a stop and finding a new window. So if you're Windows 11, you're in it's a
Not
much
yet.
easier.
I think we're still on 10.
Okay. Yeah, if you're on 10, then you're right. It's about coming back here and choosing a new window. And maybe that means it's better to share your screen if you're going to be doing a lot of switching around.
It is, yeah. We've got like a tracking spreadsheet in one window, and then I've got a PDF in another, and then like a file folder somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And we're toggling between a lot.
Yeah. And if you happen to have at least two monitors, then you could, at least share that second monitor where then they don't have to see all the stuff you got going on your primary monitor. So that might help too. But
I guess that's
once you get to Windows 11, it gets better.
Okay. I think that's why, I always refrain from choosing the screen one because it gets a little confusing, and Zoom does this too, where it opens two windows. So one of them, when I want to adjust my volume controls or whatever, or do like one of those nonverbal reactions, and I have to choose the correct meeting window to find my controls. But I think there's a separate one open with, say in Teams, it's got my list of, all the little functions, the chat, the calendar, the whatever, but it's not that window. It's the other one where the active meeting is happening.
Now, I will say what you might be describing here too is if I share my screen, you'll notice I got controls up here, and you notice my Teams window goes small, and I lose a lot of functionality here. Yeah. The easy thing here is just to maximize it again, right? You don't have to settle with that small window. It it's potentially nice because it keeps it, if that ends up being a distraction, it's down in the aside, but just maximizing it or clicking right in the middle brings it back up in its full fidelity. So if you did need to get back to it or check chat, that's always an option. I think a lot of people just assume that it goes to this and suddenly they're crippled and can't do anything, but it's just one click to bring it back.
Oh, well, I usually look down at my taskbar and I see the double, things open.
Oh, right.
And I hover and I see which one I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And don't worry, attend this session a few more times, and then Teams will become a lot easier for you than Zoom. So just to keep coming back, and we'll get you on the path.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. That was just a little tongue-in-cheek kind of joke there. And I think your hand was up from a previous one, or did you have another question?
I think someone else has their hand up. I lowered mine, so you answered my two things.
Gotcha. All right. Awesome. Okay, so Melody, I see your hand, I think.
Yeah, so when you got that something went wrong error in your meeting option settings from it didn't open up in the browser properly.
Right.
So just to help others, if they're getting that as well, if you're scheduling from your Outlook calendar for your Teams meeting, if you choose the meeting options button in the ribbon, it does work. So previously for a few days, that option wasn't working either when I was scheduling a meeting. So if you can set them when you're creating the meeting the meeting options in the body of the scheduler isn't working, but the meeting options from the button in the ribbon is working. That's not my favorite way to do it,
Right.
but it is there. And then, of course, once you're in the meeting, you can open it within the meeting on the right side panel.
Right.
So
Yeah, 'cause
just a
that's
tip.
yeah. 'Cause that's actually what I was gonna try also is yeah, I should have tried this one too. So that was the three dots and then meeting options to see if this works.
And I tried
Nope,
different
that didn't
browser.
work either.
No, it's in the Outlook scheduler. From
Yeah.
that ribbon, it will actually, it does function as it's supposed to.
In this ribbon here?
Well, yours looks different than mine.
Yeah, that's why there's no telling what I was doing here with this particular meeting. So that's why I'm wondering if this one is why it's acting wonky. But,
In my Teams meeting section of the ribbon of my Outlook, I have the option to join the meeting options, and don't host online. I have those options in my Outlook
yeah,
ribbon.
I have to play with that. That might just be
Mhm.
because this the way it's labeled. That I suspect this is old. From
Okay,
it,
I'll take
maybe
a
even a remnant of the tenant that I instantiated here, or the demo tenant. So no telling.
yeah, I'll take a screenshot and post it to the chat so you can see what I'm talking about.
Awesome. I think I saw a question. Did I miss any questions in chat? Or I guess Stacy's she's all over it.
Yeah, we had a question just about who we are from a new member of the audience. So they were curious if we were Microsoft employees. So I filled them in on that yes, you and I are, and we're focused on customer success and state and local government customers.
Yeah.
And that I think answered the open question there.
What you may have neglected to tell her too is that we're also true born geeks. Even if we weren't at Microsoft, we'd probably be doing this. We love Teams. We love Surface devices.
Guilty.
We love SharePoint. So me and Stacy go way back in our love of the platform.
That is the truth. I should own it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Glad to see you in the chat. Yeah, I mean, she mentioned the YouTube channel. Hopefully everybody knows about the YouTube channel where all of these are stored for future reference. So good stuff there. And Anne, did you have a new question? I see your hand.
I did. I
Okay.
want to say I really appreciate knowing about your offering. That you guys are here early morning for us here in California at 8 a.m. To bring our questions and any issues that we might even be having. I wanted to maybe speak on something that is kind of a Teams question because it has to do with outreach and it has to do with creating a community. And one of the things that I'm trying to do over at CCSF is bring people into the fold, so to speak. In that, I think 2023 is going to be a very big year for Microsoft and for kind of take these applications to a totally different level using Copilot and embracing AI to accomplish a lot of our work processes. And how do we do that? And I know that Microsoft is going to be bringing us a lot of knowledge about how to embrace AI and not necessarily be afraid of it, like many people are right now, because it is such a huge shift in the way that we work. But I think one of my roles is going to be communicating, not just as not how it works in this application, which is Teams, which is your specialty, or SharePoint, but how to communicate to the entire city and county user base of 30,000 employees. This is how you are going to use these tools better. I'm just wondering, I know we're going to get a lot of direction regarding that. However, how do we communicate it in a way that's easily digestible, I have a SharePoint site. We have a Teams kind of user community channel. And anyone who takes a class, I add them to our Teams group, and I post regularly in our general channel. Like I posted about this session today.
Great.
How are you finding that you strengthen your reach and keep that communication channel rich, in the sense that you're communicating with as many people as you can and they can reach out to you directly? I guess I'm looking for a little bit of guidance there, and I'm
Yeah.
taking you off the Teams topic and talking
That's
about
okay.
community,
I
but
think it's related, yeah. Because we, Teams needs a community too, for adoption and just M365 across the board. And certainly other folks on the call can chime in. I will say I've got a customer with that same goal in mind. They have done similar to you, created a SharePoint site for that community. They also created a Teams site because now that Teams can support 10,000 users. And for some orgs, you'll need more than one, but that does allow for a very large community of people to get in there. And then, of course, the key with either of those is, as the champions, to really keep feeding content to that so that people know that hey, I need to come here if I want to stay in the know and engage with other folks. So yes, there's creating the place for people, and then there's kind of getting the vibe going in that place as well. And your champions, really need to do that as well. Last thing I'll say that we mention on here a lot too is other tools like Company Communicator for blasting out large, messages across the org is another approach as well. So yes, your question is certainly one that's asked a lot. It's one that we have tried to help answer. How do we, increase that reach and adoption? And I think I saw somebody put in the links about adoption resources that we have available as well. So that'll be a couple comments I'd make on that.
Yeah, I shared that link from our aka.ms Teams adoption. And of course, it's got adoption materials across our stack. I also shared a link to the GitHub for the Company Communicator app template. In particular, I want to shout out both of those because Melody, who is in the audience today, has done that at her county agency where she's focused on a champions group. She's holding twice a month calls, I believe, and those calls are open to everyone in the county. Folks can join, they can watch the recordings, and then she uses the Company Communicator, one, to attract people when she knows what the agenda is going to be for the next one, and two, to share those recordings out, because we know folks don't, even the best of intentions around champions, sometimes they just can't get there at the exact time. So that recording goes, or a link to the recording, I should say, goes out via their Company Communicator every couple of weeks. So it just keeps people's attention on it, and then they know where to go when they're ready to participate in those champion activities. And I'm really sorry, folks, but today I have a hard stop, so I'm going to go ahead and drop off, but check out those links in the chat. Thanks, Ricardo.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. Did anybody else from their own personal experience have any comment on that? Creating communities and adoption? Okay. Awesome. So I hope that was helpful, Ann. And of course, we can continue that conversation in future sessions. So good stuff there. Glad to see everybody again, as always. And then, of course, reminder, we are on a bi-weekly schedule. So I will update the site to, show our next meeting date, which would be 2 weeks from today. So, and then, of course, we'll post this video online along with the others. So.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out the blog for more content.